Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And my next question is back to the Premier. Yesterday, and of course in the days and weeks ahead, our resolve as Canadians to never be intimidated will continually be tested as we seek to balance the need for order and security within our traditions of freedom and open democracy. We all have a renewed appreciation today for the vitality and stability of our country. It is important that we safeguard both the well-being and quality of life of the people of Ontario, and that is why I want to speak to you today in this question about the economy. Economic security is about fostering opportunity and opening trade barriers that are preventing growth and prosperity from taking hold. Ultimately, it's about creating jobs and growing our local economy in our communities. Premier, the people of Ontario want to know, what are you doing today to tear down trade barriers, create jobs, and ensure Ontario's economic security?
Thank you. Premier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, the member opposite will be happy to know that I am leaving for China on a trade mission with the Minister of International Trade and the Minister of Economic Development. And that is all about finding ways to work in partnership to look for opportunities to connect businesses here in Ontario with opportunities in China. So that is a major part of our economic strategy. The member opposite will also be pleased to know, I think, that in my conversations with my colleague premiers across the country, we are very intent on removing barriers. I am going to be speaking with Premier Couillard today and tomorrow in Niagara at the Chamber of Commerce Economic Summit, and we are engaged right now in a conversation about how we can provide more openness between Ontario and Quebec and among provinces across the country. So that is an active conversation among premiers in this country, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Well, Premier, you speak about travelling with a delegation to China to meet with friends and partners in Jiangsu province. You're also going to stop, I understand, in Beijing and Shanghai to talk about how we can increase that relationship. And while I can appreciate your desire for these types of trips, the people of Ontario have far greater concerns right here at home. While you are focused on expensive international missions, provincial premiers all across Canada are moving forward on a Canada-wide free trade zone, something that we discussed in this House back in July. Premier, have you made any real progress on this front since we last spoke, or are you still refusing to work with Premier Brad Wall to get it done?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Well, that's quite a remarkable question, given that I was fully a part of the conversation with the Council of the Federation. All of the premiers across the country agree, Mr. Speaker, that this is an issue that we are engaged in, and we are looking at the agreement on internal trade, and we are making changes. We are updating it, Mr. Speaker. And you know, there is a little bit of an undercurrent in the member opposite's question that somehow we haven't done anything, and that echoes what some members of the federal government have said, Mr. Speaker. It's just not true. We are engaged as premiers on making sure that we open up and solve the real problems, the real barriers to trade where they exist. We are not going after phantom barriers, Mr. Speaker. We want it to be a very real process, and so that's the exercise we're engaged in. Where there's a real barrier, where there's a real opportunity for improved trade, we are making those changes, Mr. Speaker.
Final supplementary.
Well, thank you, Speaker. Back to the Premier. Premier, while you are focused on your trip to China, within Canada there are significant trade barriers in numerous sectors, including energy, labour and procurement. These barriers are costing Ontario residents directly, with reduced opportunities, fewer jobs and higher consumer prices, and are something we simply cannot afford. Premier, interprovincial trade makes up a huge percentage of Ontario's economy, and because of that, the people of Ontario are counting on you to take the lead on important opportunities for our workers and employers. In the spirit of working together, what specific actions will you commit to today to move forward with Ontario's participation in the job-creating Canada-wide free trade zone?
Hey, what do you take in a trade mission tomorrow?
Those actions. The member opposite is at least 3 months behind because, Mr. Speaker, I am already working with my colleague premiers to make sure that we find the opportunities to work together. I went to Quebec. I met with Premier Couillard. We talked about opportunities even before we went to the Council of the Federation meeting. So, Mr. Speaker, we are working on breaking down those barriers. And I just want to take on the question about going to China. If the party opposite is going to propose that we as a government never travel internationally, that we never take the opportunity to go to other countries and create new markets, then I would say, Mr. Speaker, they are wrong-headed. They are not looking at the opportunities that exist for Ontario, and I reject that notion. We must connect with other countries. We must turn our chairs outwards, and we must become an exporting nation to other countries around the world, Mr. Speaker.